You're listening to Ernestly Speaking, the only weekly podcast that covers friends, foes, and anything that goes. And now, for your badass host, Ernest Owens. And we're back for a special edition of Ernestly Speaking with your host, Ernest Owens, myself. So yes, this is a special edition episode. I know no one saw this coming because, we've been just talking so much about the upcoming Senate race and everything that's going on in Philadelphia and beyond. But I thought that there was an opportunity to really talk about something on my last podcast that really struck with me, in regards to what's been going on in Fetterman's race, dealing with the Horton brothers and Dr. Oz's just huge misinformation and a lot of things he's said. But so many of you all had reached out to me following the podcast and said, hey, I want to know more about the Horton brothers and their story. They've read articles online. And it just so happens that I got a chance for this special edition episode, get a chance to interview them and talk about their journeys and talk about what's been going on in the campaign and what they look forward to doing. So, this kind of happened sporadically and everything was able to pull together. So here we are. So, I just want to introduce Lee Horton and Freedom Horton, the Horton brothers who are social justice crusaders, advocates, people of the community, Philadelphia, born and raised. They're on the show. So thank you all for being here on this special edition of Ernestly Speaking.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thanks. So you all are in Philadelphia right now?
Yep, Philadelphia. Like I said, born and raised. Right now, I'm in the Logan section. Love it to death. I wouldn't live anywhere else but Philadelphia because I love Philadelphia. I know some people they told me move to Delaware. I said, can't do it. I got to stay in Philadelphia.
And I grew up a great part of my life in Logan. Actually, I graduated from Allen High School. But right now, I'm in the Mount Airy section.
Awesome. So you're in Mount Airy. So you guys are not too far from each other, it seems like. Not too far distance-wise.
No, I think this is our general area where we lived at. Before I went to prison, I lived at 10th and Godfrey. So I'm not too far from there. I've always liked this area. My father has a house right around the corner from me. He doesn't live there right now, but my wife's mother does also have a house right around the corner. So my kids live up in this area. So it's only natural for me to come and, move back here.
Right. So how would you all describe, I guess, first off, thank you all for coming on the show. If I haven't already, thank you enough. I know there's a lot going on right now. And both of you all, so Lee, are you the oldest or is Freedom the oldest?
We got to get that out in the open from the beginning.
Yes.
I'm the oldest.
You're the oldest. Lee's the oldest.
I got to say this, Mr. Owens, we started out on the right foot and then all of a sudden we just went sideways when you asked who was the oldest.
I'm just kidding. The thing
is this: when you got two brothers, first of all, he's my oldest sibling.
I'm the oldest. I'm the oldest out of my brothers, and my middle name is Lee. So there's a lot of coincidences here. So
no, it's all good. He's my oldest sibling, and we kind of get this a lot. Fortunate for him, he looks pretty good. For his age.
Right.
He got me by a great amount of years, but it's all good. Yeah.
So you all have been brothers for some time. So you are from Philly. How would you in best ways describe, the work that you all do today? I know that there's so much has happened in recent years, but how would you describe the work that you currently do? Do you consider yourselves activists, advocates? How do you describe the work that you all currently do?
Me, let me say this, Lee, I would say all the above, and I just got to go back really quick. And, the work we do now, is a direct, directly impacted by our incarceration, the time we spent in prison. While we were in prison, just to give you, my brother and I, when we first got to prison, actually innocent, didn't commit the crime. We was in prison, and it was a bad situation for us because, we were just starting our lives. And so we were, losing hope and kind of complaining and giving up. And then, my grandmom actually came to visit us. And and we tried to complain to her, but my grandma has always been no nonsense. But we tried to complain to her and tell her. I remember us telling her that this is a dark and cold place. The men in here are cold hearted. I mean, it's always cold as far as the temperature. It's just not a place. And it's just dark. It's like a dark kind of environment. And she just listened to everything we said. And at some point, she just told us. She said if it's dark in there, she said you need to light it up with hope. And she said, if it's cold and the men are cold-hearted in there, then you need to heat it up with love. And at the time, my brother and I, we just looked at each other with these knowing looks like grandmama's just lost her mind. Here we are in the penitentiary, and she's telling us to, love people and bring hope. And it took us a little while to get it, but when we finally got it, we realized that, I think that's when we found what our purpose would be in life.
Right.
And we began to work inside to, what we considered ourselves doing is change the environment of prison from the inside out. And we got with some other individuals, and we created a organization called Community of Men Promoting a Safer Society inside. And it was solely to change the environment of inside so that we could impact the environment outside. So we wanted to change the hearts and minds of the men on the inside to get them to see that it was something better for them than being in prison. And at the same time, change the attitude of the men inside, to kind of trying to quell some of the violence and all of that. And that turned out to be a journey for us in and of itself. And, we began to try to fill in the gaps of what we saw that the staff wasn't doing. And, for us, being two guys who was innocent, it was like a little bit of revenge for us, because we wanted to send as many men home as possible, to not come back to prison, to not feed the system as we could. And so we began with the Community of Men Promote the Safer Society. And because of the work we was doing, the deputy superintendent, we gave him proposals, and he liked one of them in particular, something they called a day of responsibility. And in that day of responsibility, which was something that we didn't create, but it was the way we did the one at the...
I think we lost you. Hold on, I think we lost you.
So basically, I can pick up where you left off.
Yeah.
So, basically, the way we did the day of responsibility, we did it with a play, which was, something unusual and heard of. So you can pick it up. This was freedom. You can pick it up if you want to finish it off.
Well, I'm just saying that, we began to write plays that was about impacted crime, about mental health, and about things that we believe was impacting the men that was there. And with the plays, we would have workshops. And, in the beginning, everybody was skeptical. And then the superintendent, they attended the first one we did, and it was wildly successful. And the superintendent said, every year we want to make it bigger, and we want to invite more people from outside. And that's what we did. We brought politicians in, and people from the DA's office, and victims advocates, and staff. And after they saw the play, we would have them sit in groups with the men who were in prison to discuss, solutions to what we saw in the plays. How could we change and stop the violence in the city? Who better to ask than the men who were serving time in the institution? So that was some of the work. And my brother and I both became certified peer support specialists. And, that was something brand new they brought to the institution. And basically we was crisis managers. Men who were was going through things in the institution, they could actually go to the desk, ask the guard, I want to see a peer specialist. And they would call one of us. We would go to the housing unit, which was unheard of in prison. And I would be able to sit down and help the individual work through it. Now, what did that do? That stopped a lot of individuals from stabbing people, from getting into the fights, from having issues with their cellies, from having conflict with staff members and things like that. Because now where you had all these individuals who at one time didn't have any kind of outlet, any kind of way to work through their issues, their conflict resolution, now they did. So when they introduced the Certified Peer Specialist program into the institutions, that was a game changer. That helped us begin to decrease the violence. And then we became RAP facilitators.
Right.
RAP, Wellness Recovery Action Plan facilitators. And while we were in prison, giving men the tools to be able to make better decisions was something a lot of these men didn't have as young boys that come in.
Right. I think we lost you. One of the things I wanted to bring up and ask was that what kind of came to this work that you all were working on and doing was 27 years of, you were incarcerated for over 27 years since 1993. You all were wrongly convicted of basically, being accused of providing a ride to a friend of you all who killed a man at a Philadelphia bar, right? And you all insisted you were innocent even back then, so much that you all declined to accept a plea bargain, right? You said no plea bargain because in many ways, that would have seen you all released from 5 to 10 years. But you all insisted on your innocence, and the criminal justice system, being as far as it was, sentenced you all to life in prison. And I just want, before we get into what happened after that and why you all are free today, what was that experience like? Like, so young, like you didn't take a plea deal. A lot of people want people to take plea bargains and things of that nature. You all insisted even then back in 93. I was 2 years old at the time, but even back then with all of the conversations around mass incarceration and the 2 strikes rule and the crime bill and all these things, you all were like, no plea deal, even though it was 5 to 10 years. And you all fought it, and even without that, they put you behind bars, at least for life. What was that experience, or thought process behind that, like pushing back against that?
Well, let me just say this, and this is freedom talking now.
Yes.
You're right. Basically, we gave a ride to someone that I knew, and it happens to be a good long childhood friend of my brother's. And from that point on, everything just went sideways, and before you know it, we were stopped, we were arrested, and we were eventually taken to trial and convicted, and sentenced to pretty much death by incarceration. Because in Pennsylvania, when you're sentenced to life, that means you die in prison. And
right,
you're right, we were offered deals, and we turned them down flat because we were innocent. And we didn't feel like and they offered very low sentence deals. But the fact is, we were innocent, and we felt like this thing would straighten itself out. Let me just say this: we believed in the system. We believed it worked. Sadly, neither one of us had really had any kind of contact with the system to understand that there is no fairness. I mean, there is a lot of instances where fairness don't always happen.
Right.
And we didn't realize that. We just, of course, we grew up in the American system, and we thought that, everything always work out. This is what we were raised by TV, and again, we never had that kind of contact with the system.
And how old were you at the time?
I just turned 23 at the time, and my brother just turned 27.
I just turned 27.
Yeah. So basically, let me just so we we were it was very difficult, to say the least. I suffered with a lot of anxiety. My whole life was taken away from me. Something I didn't do. It was very difficult on my family. Fortunately, I didn't have any children. Lee had 4 children and a wife. He, married, and it was I was engaged to be married. It was very difficult. It just felt like I was in the twilight zone. Like this, is this real? I mean, felt like the whole world was coming to an end. And literally, my world did come to an end because I was put in prison and sentenced to die. And every day was a struggle, to say the least. And like my brother, he talked about my grandmother and trying to invoke sympathy, and I mean, it was just very difficult, and neither one of us was prepared for what we would face. But the days went on, and it's something to be said about just human beings. Being able to overcome and adapt to very difficult situations. So we got to a point where either we was gonna, lack of a better word, sink or swim. So we figured out a way to swim through these very difficult, rough seas. But the thing about it is, as we swim through these rough seas, we've seen a lot of things that were just like, just so bad and just so, shocking to us, that we didn't want to become what we saw. You know what I mean? So we basically, fought hard to change, a lot of the things we saw coming through. We came through Holmesburg Prison. And if anybody knows the situation and the state of how Holmesburg prison people back then, it was just very chaotic, very difficult. You could pretty much lose your mind in a place like that. And we were fortunate we came through it with our minds intact, even so more determined to change things, in our past. And that's what we kind of did when we eventually got sentenced. After a few years of just trying to figure out, how we would survive this thing, eventually, I think I can just say we found our footing and began to do the work of not only creating better us, but also creating better folks around us.
Right. And so at the time, in 2021, which was last year technically, the Pennsylvania Board of Pardons, which John Fetterman, who's our current lieutenant governor, who's now running for U.S. Senate, he chaired that. You all were unanimously recommended to have your sentences commuted. And, that's, when I heard that news, and I remember where I was when I received that news, I was shocked. I mean, there's been so many exonerations. I feel like when They See Us came out a couple years ago, there was just a lot of conversations about how unfair the criminal justice system has been and how many lives have been shaped by it. People always think, oh, it's just a few. But it's just seemed lately that there's just so many stories, especially of black men, that are consistently being exonerated and just consistently, there's settlements and being released and having sentences commuted. And what was that like when you all found out that your sentences were being commuted, that basically the state saw you all innocent and you were freed after 27 years of serving time for a crime that you all did not commit? What was that like when you got the call and when you found out that this was going to work?
Well, I mean, when people say it felt like a weight was lifted, that's an understatement for us. It felt like a whole building was taken off my back. That's how I felt. I felt light as a feather, because all of the stress and the anxiety of the things that we were carrying while we were inside were now in one movement of a pen was all gone. And, it felt like it was a miracle. I'm not even gonna lie, because when you serve a life sentence, you really don't expect to come home. And, whether you committed the crime or you didn't commit the crime, we didn't commit the crime, we were innocent. And, we at some point had said that, that's why we started doing the work we was doing, because we said we didn't want to just die in prison and have never ever done anything, and have had somebody to steal our lives away. And, we've never done anything and never had the opportunity to do anything. So we began to try to live a life in prison. And, one of the things I didn't say my grandma told us, when she told us that, she said, you worry about the things you can handle. And then she used to always say, let God handle the rest. And, as people, as human beings, we try to control everything. And we fought for 20-something years in prison, wrote everybody in Pennsylvania, everybody in the city, all the politicians, all the organizations. Nobody really came to our aid. And at some point, we stopped doing that and began to try to fight on our own. And in the end, we wound up coming home in a way that we had not planned, because we fought in the courts. And we wound up through commutation. And just to give you a quick, understanding of how that happened, we would have never filed for commutation if it would have just been about us. I mean, just us doing it. But It was a staff member in the prison who happens to be Republican. I want to put that out there. After the Republican, who came to us and said, "What are you guys doing in prison?" He just out of the clear called us in his office and said, "What are you guys doing in prison?" And we told him our story, and he said, "Why don't you file for commutation?" And we walked off and never even thought about it for a whole year. And then he came back And he said, did you file that application? We said, no. And he said, well, I want you to file for commutation. You should file for commutation.
Mm-hmm.
He said, this is the best I can do is tell you to file. And we filed, and then it took him a life of his own. And, we got the support of the institution. It's a rigorous process. I mean, people don't understand how much you got to go through to get to the Board of Pardons. But got the support of the institution, got the support of the DOC. And the DOC itself, the secretary, and a lot of the staff within the DOC itself began to push
the Department of Corrections, correct?
Department of Corrections.
Okay.
So it wasn't like we just walked up to the Board of Pardons and they was the only ones who had a hand in this.
Right.
It was a whole bunch of staff members. We had the full support. When I say full support, we had the full support of the institution. We came from superintendents and everything. And one of the things I just want to tell you this quick thing about when we were service for our peer specialists, and then give you kind of example of what our lives was like inside.
Yeah.
Superintendent called us to the infirmary. She said, I got a young kid. They sent him down from Pine Grove. He's underage, so he cannot be in population. He really should be here, but they wanted to get him closer to his family because they said he's going to die. They said he's going to die. There's nothing you can do to help him, but we just want you two men to be there with him, while he's going through, probably he had cancer. I forget what kind of cancer it was, lymphoma.
So you said it was other things with cancer and lymphoma, and you saw some of this too, Freedom, some of these experiences, and what was that like in interacting with people through the peer?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
Just think it's raining outside, so I just it keeps going in and out. But just to make it quickly so I can get all it in, my brother could have told the story too. But we went in there and we began to sit with this guy, and first thing we noticed was he wasn't eating right. So we started talking about changing his diet. We got the staff to get him a different diet, no more junk food. We started playing cards with him, sitting with him. My brother started joking around, laughing with him, doing things with him. Before you know it, he was sitting up. Then we was up at the gym, working out, taking him back and forth to the gym. When the whole jail was locked down. And just to make a long story short, at the end of the day, he went and they said his cancer was in remission. And we realized that, as peer specialists, we realized that he lacked the will to live. And now he had the will to live. Now the point I wanted to get to was he became one of the individuals who was in one of our plays. We did plays for 5 years and workshops for 5 years. And he was one of the ones who wound up in one of the plays. Once he got enough of the age, he could be in population. Wow. And so when the DOC supported us and the superintendent supported us, they supported us because we had many situations like that. We were doing work to help, man. It wasn't just my brother and I. It was a whole bunch of us, individuals serving life sentences who was in there doing work. It just so happened that my brother and I were wrongfully convicted and innocent. And, and like you said, there were so many other men who were innocent who was on their way home. And if you check, a lot of the individuals we were on a block with happened to be home, were wrongfully convicted, are now home. And we were all doing that work.
If I can just add to that briefly, Ernest. Lee's right. And the individual who was courageous enough to bring that program, which was the Certified Peer Support Specialist program, into the institution, into the DOC overall, who happens, to be the secretary was Secretary Wetzel, who happens to be a Republican. You know what I mean? Who also supported us wholeheartedly and believed in our innocence, and through the whole full weight of the DOC behind, fighting for our freedom. And it just didn't stop there. I remember in 2019, we went up for commutation. We got turned down. It was devastating.
Wow. So this wasn't the first. So the 2021, when the sentences were commuted, you all were rejected in 2017?
2019.
2019. Oh wow.
So 2019, we thought that we would get it. You know what I mean? And I just got to give you what was happening around that time. Our mother was sick. She had been sick for quite a while. She's been just hanging in there. She's been our staunchest, our most, biggest supporter. You know what I mean? She fought with us from day one. She never wavered. She was always there. This is a lady that believes so much in our innocence She went from living in a really good neighborhood to, to basically, because lawyers cost money and just for the fight. And we were fighting for, for 25 years straight before she got sick. You know what I mean? And, and it was very difficult, but at the end of the day, we got, she was pretty much slipping away from it. She was dying. She was, you know what I mean? It was very difficult when we got denied in 2019 because she was pretty much on her deathbed. I mean, we knew had we not gotten in 2019, we would probably never see her again alive. And sure enough, they denied us. And, right after they denied us, she passed away early 2020. She passed away in March of 2020. And it was like, we got denied and then she passed away. And then everything was so difficult for us to just it was to bear. But, we would go on. And one day, my sister said, well, let me just say this. We was in the cell and, we were told that, Lieutenant Governor was on John Fetterman was on the radio talking about our case. And we were told that, he was saying that, he believed in our innocence and he wanted to fight to help us get home. We are men that didn't deserve to be in prison. And, my sister had got a call from him. And, when we got denied in 2019, he told my sister, he said, hey, listen, I believe in your brothers. I believe that, they're innocent men and they should be home with their families. And I am going to do everything in my power to fight to help bring them home to you guys. And I don't care if it costs me the next election, you know what I mean? This is what I'm going to do because it's the right thing to do. Now, let me just say this. John did this when nobody was looking. John did this when nobody was paying attention. The thing is this, he could have easily said, listen, guys, I'm sorry, we gave it a great shot in 2019, but, I wish you guys the best. Like most people who fight with folks do.
Right.
No, this man stuck with us to the very end and said, told my sister that, listen, I don't care if it costs me the next election, I'm going to fight to help bring your brothers home because that's the right thing to do. I mean, this is the character and this is the kind of man that you have in John Fetterman. And this is the kind of person that you will have as our next Pennsylvania United States Senator. Somebody who's going to go to Capitol Hill and fight for you, not going to waver on the issues. It's going to stand strong and firm for you on the issues that's there and means a lot to you as a voter.
Right. And so so you all clearly didn't know him. He just kind of just looked into your case. He chaired the, Pennsylvania Board of Pardons. And, there's many cases that he could have looked at. And I guess the case resonated with him. And afterwards, you all began, he quickly, decided to run for Senate. And, it could have stopped there. But what made you all from that point be a part of that campaign? Because you all could have simply just did an ad. Most people will I'll do an ad, I'll do a shout out, and then I'm going to go away. But you all from the very beginning have been very pivotal, I think, in shaping a lot of different people's perspective. I will tell you, I'm a millennial. I'm 30. I'll be 31 in October. I was interested in his race because of what I heard about this story. And made myself do a second look around, right? Because there was so many things being said. And I just wanted to read more about the candidates. And I think you all's story struck me and his interest in criminal justice in a different way. Because a lot of people say they're for the issues, but I'm like, okay, well, what's the track record? You got talking points, you got bullet points, but where is an example? Where's the work and what are the plan? And you all were on the ground throughout Pennsylvania telling you all's story and talking about what this agenda is. And I know that you all play a role in informing the work that he's doing on the criminal justice front. And I was just surprised because this wasn't, how I knew him or how media was talking about him at the time. And it made me want to explore and cover him and cover this race. And so what has it been like? I mean, before we get into what has recently happened, but, during the primaries and going out to, Philadelphia, because, the Democratic establishment in Philadelphia during the primary, supported other people, right? And it seemed like that. What was that like, to come back to your hometown and tell people about someone from a different part of Pennsylvania that was running for this seat? What was that whole experience like?
Ernest, Lee, if I can I just want to say one thing, and then Leo get into that.
Yeah.
If I can, I'll be remiss if I didn't touch on, the great difficulty that it was, and because at the end of the day, we filed the first actual innocent, application for commutation.
Mm-hmm.
That's unheard of. No one ever does that. People who file a commutation, an application, a commutation, which is eventually granted clemency, is normally people who are guilty, people who have done the crime, people who are asking for remorse, a second chance because they've been rehabilitated, they've been transformed. We didn't. We went under actual innocence. So it was actually a long battle in the 2019 denial. After that, it was a long battle of presenting the whole entire case, laying it out with lawyers and everything, so that the board can have confidence that they were voting on two men who stated that they were innocent, If that makes sense. So I just wanted to make sure, give a little more clarity to that process.
Yeah.
And how we got granted, Eventually we got granted based on, opening up the case and taking a good look at it, because we had the Attorney General, which is Josh Shapiro.
Right.
He's a lawyer. This was very important to him that we be innocent and not be, not. So
it was a collaborative effort.
Right. So I just wanted to set the stage on that, so you can give your audience a little more clear understanding of that.
Absolutely.
Legal.
No,
Yeah,
totally.
And for us, representing John out in public, and for us, it felt like some kind of wonderful. Not to get too corny, but it felt like some kind of wonderful because we got the job because of the work that was recognized that we did in prison. Now, I told a few things, but we did a whole bunch of other things that led up to a lot of organizing in prison. So we had already began organizing. We organized on a few campaigns while we were in prison, with networking with other individuals, other guys who were in prison, their families, trying to organize the families of the incarcerated while we were incarcerated. So when we came home and we had these conversations with the then political director, about how Philadelphia could be organized to win, and they came back and they offered us a job, and then we went out and we did the work the way we knew how to do the work, by engaging people, interacting with people one after another. Walking up and down the streets, knocking on doors. Going and talking to the individuals in communities that we believe had the most influence. Meeting people and having them introduce us to people. And we began to do that. And this, for me, going across Philadelphia just felt so good after, I had been incarcerated for so long. And, like I said, I had a wife, I had 4 kids. I had a 2-week-old baby when I went to prison.
Oh my gosh.
And just said that, my wife and I went together today. I live with my wife. I had my granddaughter with me all the time, my children. So for me,
so we kind of
yes. It's that weather. It's been a rainy day.
So I can also answer for me. It's just a gratifying feeling to be able to work for somebody. Let me just say this.
Us to do the work that we.
Go ahead, Lee. You got cut out on us.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So for John to allow us to do the work that we was doing before out here in society, it was a wonderful thing.
Oh goodness, it's storming.
Yeah. So let me just answer. So basically, just being a part of the campaign, it was a no-brainer. When we were asked to be a part of it, of course. And then on top of it, to be hired. Listen, we would have did it for free. This is how much we believed in John Fetterman. Not because he helped us. Let me just say this. It's something to be said for people doing the right thing. You know what I mean? I'm gonna be honest with you. We didn't feel like we owed him anything.
Right.
You know what I mean? But we felt like, this is what politics is missing. People like this.
Yeah.
People that actually care about people. You know what I mean? That care about people in such a way that they're willing to put their own career on the line to help, their fellow person, their fellow man, you know what I mean? Their fellow woman. I mean, this is, I know it sounds a little cliche, but this is really what's missing, that authenticity of people who actually care about people. And that's what it took, you know what I mean? But for us to get free is for somebody to actually care about us. Right. That's what John showed. And that's what we need in politics. You know what I mean? Not just business as usual. And we believe John would make a great senator, just as he's made, a great lieutenant governor. You know what I mean? And we, felt like, hey, listen, we'll support him in any way we can. We'll go out and we'll canvass, we'll talk to people, like my brother said, and connect with the average citizen. And it was amazing to us. Most people in Philadelphia didn't know anything about John. They didn't know that John was the mayor of Braddock. You know what I mean? A majority African-American town, 85% African-American town. That when he took, the thing about it is, when he first started, in Braddock, he was a teacher helping young African-American, people, get their GED. This is where he started at. You know what I mean? Supporting them in that kind of way. And then, he lost two of his students, and through the loss of two of his students who got killed through gun violence, he took it upon himself to say, hey, listen, I want to make a difference. So he ran for mayor. And he ran for mayor, and I think he lost a couple of times, but eventually he won, and he won by the most narrowest of votes. One vote. One vote, as to become the next mayor of Braddock. And then when he became the mayor of Braddock, he began the process of changing things. Let's understand what Braddock, the kind of condition Braddock was in before he became mayor.
Definitely wasn't Philly.
No, listen, it was like a mirror image of what you would see in Philly if you go back quite a few years. Right. High unemployment rates. What you see now, a lot of crime, high homicide rate, lacked supermarkets, lacked opportunity. You know what I mean? A lot of hopelessness, a lot of poverty. You know what I mean? Drug use. This is what you saw. But when he came in as mayor, he began the process of connecting with the people. You know what I mean? Communicating with them. And through that, they began to tell him what they needed. And he set out and began to do the work. And before you know it, the unemployment rate started coming down. Before you know it, the crime rate started coming down. Before you know it, no more homicides. Before you know it, he bring, commerce and business, to a town that was once desolate and not very few businesses there. Supermarkets. This is the John that we know. And this is the John that once we tell Philadelphians about, they come to know, quite naturally, they jump at the opportunity to support somebody like this. This is who we need as our next United States Senator. So that I just wanted to give you, kind of understanding why we support John.
Yeah.
And if I can, some of the things that we're doing out here in society now, of the way John treated us, that's how we want to treat the people out here. So we are trying to stand with people who people have forgotten. So we go to community centers around the city that, a lot of people don't go to anymore because of the neighborhoods. And we try to, we want to present them with, can we do a rap seminar for you to try to teach the young folks decision making or something like that? Or, how can we help? How can we bring what we know to the table so that we can help to stop the violence in the city? So, we was doing that in prison. We always ask the question, if we could do it in prison, why can't we do it out here?
Right.
Of all places, you can decrease violence. And a lot of people don't ask the question, why is Pennsylvania prisons some of the safest prisons in the country? Why do they have some of the safest prisons in the country? Because the men are inside, like us, my brother and I, doing the work to decrease violence. And so we came home, and that's what we were trying to do out here. One of the things that we do every month is we still try to help individuals inside. We go up to the DOC's training academy once a month to talk to the crisis intervention teams and new recruits. The DOC has us come back to talk to them for some first ever, two guys who were, as they say, convicted come back to the DOC's training academy and lecture individuals on, the things that people go through when they first come to prison, and looking at a better way of, doing things so that you don't have the situations that you have, so you can have less violence, and so that can be safer. We also sit on a national justice involved peer support council. We sit on that to try to, see how we can impact peer support around the country. And all that is because, we're following John's lead. We see what he has done. And, so we want to do some of the same things, but we want to do it, in what we know how to do.
Right.
And
so I wanted to, from all the work and the support, you all have helped build momentum in your own right for the issues around criminal justice reform that you all were doing before having your sentences commuted, before Fetterman came into the picture, and definitely while on the campaign for Fetterman now. But it seems like the bigger the race, the closer we get to November 8th's election, the more it appears to be a lot of Republican hate. And so, recently there was a press release by, Dr. Oz's campaign, who is the Republican candidate going against Fetterman in November. This press release came out recently that referred to you two as convicted, quote unquote, convicted murderers. And this has been going on because Fetterman, they are trying to come after Fetterman's stances on criminal justice reform. Really, the Republicans have arguably, Dr. Oz, they tried to frame, this as being, him being soft on crime, right? And on Twitter, he went further by saying that you two were, quote, convicted in the murder and are now paid by basically Fetterman's campaign. But he did not mention the fact that you all had been wrongfully accused and sentenced, and that your sentences were commuted after you all served 27 years behind bars. Of course, none of that information is there. Of course, Fetterman responded, immediately, in a statement saying that, that going after you two as campaign staffers was a new low for Dr. Oz, and basically emphasized that you all were wrongfully convicted, and that, he's going to continue to do the work, and that he looked at fighting for you all's release as, quote, one of the proudest moments of my career, and I'm honored to have them on this team. And that was really what you all put out there. Even furthermore, the deputy superintendent at the Department of Corrections also put out a letter, saying, quote, they just don't belong in prison. And that was at that time when you all were fighting for your freedom. What has that been like these last few days since Dr. Oz has kind of put this out there? A lot of other Republicans nationally has joined this bandwagon. I mean, how does it feel to have you all's name in this type of way and be caught up in this campaign in this type of way? I mean, it seems like, Oz's camp is doubling down on the nasty as they get close to November. We're close to 2 months away from the election. And it seems like the race is getting really, really nasty. How do you all feel to be, caught up in this side of it? And what do you all think about Dr. Oz and all of that?
Well,
what do you think, Freedom?
So the thing is this, when we heard, Dr. Oz's statement about us, we were baffled because, here we are, two wrongfully convicted individuals who've been set free, but yet he, targets us, as convicted murderers. And the thing, the first thing we thought is, Dr. Oz, can't be from Pennsylvania, because if he was from Pennsylvania, then he would have known about our case, because our case was highly publicized.
Yeah, it was statewide news. I was like, everyone knows this. This has been already addressed. Like, we're, even in the ammunition literature, right? Like when people try to use negative things or whatever, it's almost like you didn't know who they were. Like, this was literally a highlight of the primary. Like, we already went through this, so why is this being used, in this way? I mean, it's just stupid. But
Ernest, the crazy thing about it is that, in order for us to be free today, we had to have, bipartisan support. from Republicans and Democrats.
That is very true. The Board of Pardons is a bipartisan board. A lot of people don't know that. And this is Pennsylvania. They're not just from Philly or from Harrisburg. This is a very politically diverse group of individuals that have to make these decisions, which is interesting because it's just people don't know that aspect of it. And I'm happy you brought that up. Just that there is a bipartisan investment interest on that board particularly because, it's not just black people that are being pardoned and all of that.
Right.
And getting
and, and let me just also add to that, Ernest, it's been a lot of a bipartisan effort to see free men, who've been wrongfully convicted and innocent in prison for years and years and decades, come home. This is what we've been seeing. This is what you kind of alluded to earlier, that, innocent men have been coming home in droves, because, the thing is this, a lot of things went wrong with the system, surrounding mass incarceration,
right?
Mandatory minimums and rush to judgment, and being tough on crime policies and laws that led to a lot of folks being wrongfully incarcerated. So we home now. The thing is this, we're home. We're living our lives. John, gave us a job working on this campaign, and for Dr. Oz to call for us to be fired. I mean, which makes absolutely no sense. This is like first of all, again, our case has been widely publicized. This is nothing new about our case. And now for him to say we shouldn't be able to work. I mean, had we suffered enough? Or, I mean, what more do you want from us?
Right.
I mean, if you not want us to be able to work and provide for our families, then what would you have us do? I mean, don't work, don't be able to participate in our society.
Then you all would have been lazy then. Then you all would have been wanting a handout then. It's just like, it's a weird give and take. It's like you guys have been released, you all have been exonerated, you are free, and you all are working, doing what you do, and yet that's not enough. The logic isn't there. It's just been a logical campaign. And
this should not be an issue, Ernest. I mean, the thing is this, we have Republicans and Democrats alike agree on making sure our system is fair and having just outcomes. Nobody wants to see, I don't think Republicans or of course Democrats wants to see anybody go to prison that's wrongfully in prison for a crime they didn't commit.
Right. I mean, they're literally right now trying to defend someone who's currently being investigated, in the former White House leader that they're claiming, abolished the FBI and talking about justice system in that department for Trump. But then somehow in conversations with cases that have already been resolved and settled, somehow they want to keep on bringing things up in weird ways. It's like this has been addressed. Pennsylvanians have already debated it. There's no debate about your freedom. There's been no Republicans on the state level that have spoken out against you all having, the freedom that you all have. I mean, even in the primaries where everyone wanted to cherry pick other issues to debate, this was like a non-factor. Like no one, like on this was like the one thing no one, I think, with Fetterman's policies disagreed with. I mean, even conservatives were like, they were there. They were in that room making those decisions, and this was not an issue. So it's baffling that Dr. Oz decided to go with this, especially knowing that it's not true. I mean, it's really liable in a way. It's misleading to say, describe you all as convicted, put you all out there on Front Street this way, and to not clarify or to purposely mislead. That's it was a lie. And
the thing about it,
but I think that's what my brother was trying to say. Is that just shows that he's not from Pennsylvania,
right?
Because he hasn't been here enough, or doesn't live here. Because if you lived here in Pennsylvania and you were from Pennsylvania, you would know all of these things, and you would actually know what's going on in Pennsylvania. Because we were I think pretty big news at one time.
It was, yes, it is, yeah. And it definitely was big news again in the spring, during the spring primary,
right? So for him to start talking about it, attacking it, like my brother, you don't want us to. I'm trying to take care of my grandchildren now. I'm trying to make a life for myself. My brother's trying to make a life for himself after we've been wrongfully convicted and sat in prison for 20-something years. And we just want to make a life for ourselves. And for John to give us a job, I think he just put his money where his mouth is. And when he talks about second chances, he's giving us a job.
Yeah.
And he's just not saying that you should come home, but he's saying you should be able to make a living. And you should be able to make a living doing the things that you were doing before. And, we have a unique skill and a unique approach to people. And, we have a way of talking to people. I don't know. Maybe we're really effective. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where, because the level of meanness that we're receiving, we don't even understand it.
Right. And what is it? Is it just are you all just the constant? I mean, is it anything outside of what's being publicity, or is it just like consistency? I mean, there's other Republicans who've joined on this bandwagon nationally that have kind of jumped in and kind of amplified the misinformation from Oz.
Well, what they're doing, I don't know what I can say is this. In our travels, I've come across regular citizens who identify themselves to me as Republican, and they say to me, I don't like what's going on. I've heard your story before. I'm glad you're home. And, I support you being here, and so on and so forth. So we don't get that from, people have asked us, are people calling your phone? People are not calling my phone because I think, by and large, Pennsylvanians know the truth. Mm-hmm. So they're not involved. Everything is coming from the outside of Pennsylvania. This is not coming from Pennsylvania.
That's good to know. That's interesting. So it's. I mean, I haven't on my end of covering. I don't hear much about it. I mean, I think when I follow campaigns, people are like, well, what are people saying? And I'm like, not here. I mean, not here at least, but nationally it has been something. But I think a lot of people nationally, like, again, if you don't live in Pennsylvania, you only gonna hear half of it or a quarter of it, whatever you see. And so it's almost like the blind is leading the blind in this case, because Dr. Oz is clearly not from Pennsylvania. I'm not convinced he's from here. It's weird because it's a cheap shot that doesn't even land, because we all know what happens in the end. So it kind of just doesn't even play out. I mean, it gets deflated instantly. Like, he's got convicted, murderers on his staff. And it's like, but the state and everyone agreed and exonerate them. They're released. If they were convicted murderers, why are they working on the campaign, and why are they working right now? And you're like really going to buy a ride and bypass the criminal justice system just to make a point based on what political mudslinging? Like, it's just really annoying. Because it's just unnecessary, and the implications of putting a target on two innocent black men's backs, like re-putting that out there in a way to draw that kind of attention, especially when you all really been doing the work to just kind of just do your thing and push for what you believe in,
Ernest, I just want to say one last thing. Sometimes people, I'm just, my brother and I, again, like I said, we were baffled and shocked, because the thing is this, my brother has grandkids. These kids, they watch the media, they watch TV. Mm-hmm. His kids, I have friends, I have, other family members that's younger, that's watching this and watching his attacks on us. You know what I mean? This is about a Senate campaign about issues. Why is he attacking us when he should be just talking about issues, about the average everyday Pennsylvanian citizen, things that impact them as far as their pocketbook, their kitchen table issues, not just attacking two brothers who came home wrongfully convicted. I don't understand like you. I don't understand what, where is he going? I would just.
Yeah. And so, in wrapping up, I don't know if there's an echo, but in wrapping up, I was wondering, what are your specific things that you're working on for this upcoming campaign? Like, what is the biggest things that you all look forward to, including, like, what's your goals?
Well, let me just say this. Our goal is simple. You know what I mean? To continue to talk about his policies, and how it will benefit average, everyday Pennsylvanians. That is it. You know what I mean? And just, let them see for themselves. Hey, this is what John stands for. This is what he is about. This is what his platform is about. Now it's up to you to make a choice. You know what I mean? Who you want to vote for in this upcoming Senate race, And that's really what we are to. You know what I mean? Just continuing to just, connect with people about John and why we believe he'll make a great senator, and he'll work for the average Pennsylvanians up on Capitol Hill. That is it.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask you this too. So your name was initially Dennis. What made you change it to Freedom? I mean, it's bold, but what made you change your name to Freedom?
Well, growing up in Philadelphia, of course, I graduated, like I told you earlier, I graduated out of Alney High School, but I had a lot of struggles, and the thing is this: when I got to prison, instead of me just sitting on the sideline, I took advantage of every educational opportunity that availed itself to me. My brother did the same, and through that education, I found out that I struggled. Comprehension. I struggled in math. I struggled in so many things that I didn't get from the Philadelphia school system, and I began to overcome a lot of challenges. Like I had a learning disability. When I got to prison, and I overcame that. So it was only befitting. And also, lastly, I was a free man in prison. I always operated as a free man in prison. And that is one of the reasons why I took on the name Freedom. It was only befitting for me to take on that name.
I got you. And before wrapping up, I wanted to hear from you, Lee, about what are you looking forward to as we get ready for the campaign.
I think that my brother pretty much answered it. I mean, we're going to continue to do what we've been doing. We're going to keep engaging. We're going to organize Philadelphia as hard as we can to get as many people to know John and tell our story as much as we can to as many people as we can. And it's to keep doing, what we've been doing. And, wherever it's going on, you're going to see us there trying to, inform people of the truth about John, to tell them, who he really is. And, and like my brother said, we would have did this for free. So every day that we can get out there and talk about John is a happy day for us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been a lot to talk about, a lot to reflect on. I'm processing a lot of it just hearing you all, and definitely a lot of listeners and people who've been following this campaign. I mean, it's an interesting aspect of it. I didn't expect, 48 hours ago or 40 hours later I'll be, getting a chance to interview you too. But it was definitely an important interview, and definitely necessary with everything that's going on right now. But this November 8th election is a big deal. It's one that's going to really impact the future of this country, and really, Pennsylvania for sure, but the country. There's a chance that Democrats could potentially take over the Senate, but that's going to be really heavily involved on what people do in each state, brick by brick. And this aspect of the race is definitely one that people should keep their eyes on. So I want to again thank you so much for both of you all for coming on the show. And as always, to the listeners, as always, be well and be best. Ernestly Speaking is recorded in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and can be found on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. To stay up to date with the latest on the show, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Mr. Ernest Owens. Use the hashtag Ernestly Speaking to tell me what you thought about this episode, and check out my website at ernestowens.com.